Hey there, welcome to Secrets of the Ancients. If you want to keep exploring these mysteries with us, please support the channel by subscribing, liking and leaving a comment. It really helps us out and lets us keep sharing these stories with you. Giants in stone. Mysterious monuments from around the world. All over the world, enormous stones are stacked in ways no one can quite explain. Towering statues with eyes that seem to remember. Buried under hills and jungles are clues to something we were never meant to forget. Who carved these giants? Who moved entire mountains without machines? Some of these sites are older than recorded history, and they weren't just built, they were designed to last. Tonight, we follow the trail of megaliths, from forgotten temples to impossible statues and stories buried deep in stone. The giant Buddha of Leshan, China. It starts with a mountain and a wide, relentless river carving through the landscape. Carved straight into the cliffside where three rivers meet in Sichuan, China, sits something unexpectedly peaceful and incredibly precise for its age. The giant Buddha of Leshan. This isn't a statue placed on a platform, it is the mountain. The seated Buddha stands 71 meters tall, with arms resting on his knees, carved so smoothly into red sandstone it feels like he breathes with the earth itself. No one knows exactly why or how it was made. Construction began in the early 8th century during the Tang dynasty, said to be initiated by a monk named Haitong. He believed carving a Buddha would calm the deadly waters below, and oddly, it worked. The carving caused sediment to build up, changing the river's flow and stopping the dangerous whirlpools. But here's the real mystery. It wasn't just made to be looked at. The statue has a hidden drainage system carved inside. Channels run through the hair, chest, underarms, and behind the ears, redirecting rainwater and preventing erosion. That's why it survived over 1,000 years. Who designed that? A Tang dynasty monk or someone older? The precision is unusual for ancient sculptures. The Buddha's ears, for example, are 7 meters long and made of wood covered in clay, still intact after storms, earthquakes and centuries. His 15-meter head is so perfectly aligned with the cliff that even in heavy rain, water drains off just right, as if designed yesterday. Up close you can't even see the whole figure, just cliffs and stone, until you realize you're staring at a toe the size of a room. Each toenail is bigger than most people, but even more striking than its size is the feeling. People say you don't feel watched when you're near it. You feel seen, like it's known you forever. When the fog rolls in and the tourists go quiet, it feels like the only thing still alive in the valley. Some believe the statue might be even older than the Tang dynasty. There are traces of older carvings beneath it, foundations that don't match the upper layers, and sealed caves under the feet that haven't been explored. In the 1990s, during restoration work, hollow chambers were found behind the statue, with iron rods embedded deep in the cliff, support structures with no known origin or record. Even the sandstone it's carved from is unusually resistant to erosion in that one area. Geologists still can't explain why. And then there are the eyes. Dark hollow, yes, but carved in a way that makes you feel like no matter where you stand, the Buddha sees you. Not just you, through you. Some locals refuse to visit at night, not out of fear, but because the stillness feels too ancient, too aware. Like the statue was made to outlast the civilization that built it. Many believe it's not just a monument, but a message. A memory carved to resist fire, floods and forgetfulness. A reminder from a time we no longer understand. And behind every sacred symbol, every hand-placed stone, there might be something far older and more advanced than we allow ourselves to imagine. And maybe that's why after 1,300 years it's still sitting there, silent, untouched, watching the rivers, waiting. In the heart of the Mediterranean, on the rugged island of Sardinia, the land rolls gently. Low hills, olive trees, quiet fields of grain. Nothing here screams giants. But near the town of Cabras, something strange began to emerge. At first just fragments, a face, a broken torso, a curve of a shield. Farmers kept hitting carved stones in the soil. Then, in 1974, the land gave up more. Buried beneath farmland were shattered remains of over 20 massive statues, figures over 2 meters tall, with hypnotic concentric circle eyes, boxers, archers, warriors, giants, unlike anything ever found in Europe. Carbon dating puts them around the 9th to 8th century BCE, nearly 3,000 years old, older than Rome, contemporary with early Greece but not Greek. These statues belong to the Nuragic civilization, a mysterious culture we still don't fully understand. What's even weirder, nothing else like them has ever been found. The Nuragic people were known for building stone towers and forts. But statues this big, this detailed, this is something else. Each figure was carved from local limestone, many with large round shields or raised fists. These weren't decorative. They felt symbolic, guardians meant to endure. But then, why were they all smashed? Every statue was found in pieces, heads separated from bodies, limbs broken, not by time or weather, but by force. Archaeologists think they were deliberately destroyed, maybe during a conflict or as part of some ritual. And they weren't left to decay, they were buried, carefully, deliberately. Someone wanted them hidden, but preserved. The site also has ancient graves, hundreds of them. Some of the statues were placed right above the tombs as if watching over the dead. Could they represent real warriors, ancestors, or something else entirely? Their features are detailed but unfamiliar. Their weapons, stone boxing gloves, strange curved blades, massive round shields, don't match anything known from that time. They look both familiar and alien. And their sheer scale is unprecedented. These are the oldest life-size statues ever found in the Western Mediterranean. There's nothing like them in ancient Italy, France or Spain. No inscriptions were found, no language to tell us who made them or why. Archaeologists are still reconstructing them, some from hundreds of fragments, scanned and matched using modern tech. And the mystery deepens. Some heads don't match the others, larger, heavier, older. Could they be prototypes from a different era, or do they represent real giants? That question lingers quietly over the entire site. Sardinia has ancient legends, stories of giganti, giants who once walked the land. The locals always believed the statues were real. Now we know where they were. Some think they marked sacred ground, a spiritual zone guarded by stone ancestors. Others think they were a message, proof that the Nuragic people were advanced, organized, powerful, and then they disappeared. No great empire, no long history, just towers, and now statues. So what happened? Were they quietly forgotten by time, conquered? Or did they leave on their own terms, sealing their stories in stone, waiting for someone to remember? Now, inside a museum in Cabras, the Monte Prama giants stand again, reassembled, silent, watching. But they don't feel like museum pieces. They still feel like guardians, as if they're waiting. This is the shape of galaxies, DNA and even consciousness itself. It's tempting to look at Arkaim and see more than just ruins, to see a message carved into stone and ash, a symbol of something humanity once understood and then forgot. And the strange thing is, people feel it. Modern visitors to Arkaim describe it as heavy, not strange, heavy, as if the earth itself remembers something, like the spiral beneath your feet isn't just architecture, it's a memory. And at sunset, when the light hits the rings just right, the shadows stretch long and the center glows. And for a moment it's like you can hear something beneath the wind. Not a voice, not a language, just a feeling. That something sacred happened here. That the builders knew what they were doing. That this spiral, wasn't just a place to live, it was a place to exist, to learn, to connect the sky and the soil. Now all that remains is the pattern in the earth and the wind, and the question, what else have we forgotten? Anara, the giant with the lion's feet. In the far north of Syria, where dry winds whisper through ancient stones and the mountains keep their silent watch, there was once a place no one expected to hold such secrets. A quiet, forgotten site. But one that holds something too big, too precise, and too intentional to be just a legend. The site is called Anara. At first glance, it looks like any other ancient temple. Weathered stones, crumbling columns, a staircase that leads to emptiness. But take a few steps closer, and you'll see what sets Anara apart. Massive footprints. Footprints carved directly into the stone, and they're not human-sized, not even close. One of them is nearly 3 feet long. A few steps ahead, another one just as large, imprinted deep into solid basalt. And there's not just one. There's a pattern, like something huge once walked across the threshold and into what used to be the temple's main hall. These aren't random markings. The placement, depth and positioning are unsettling. It feels like whoever or whatever left them behind was meant to be remembered. The temple itself is thought to date back to around 1300 BCE, possibly built by the Arameans. It's decorated with stone lions and sphinxes. Oddly, its architecture mirrors that of Solomon's temple, something scholars say came later. That's the weird part. How could an isolated Syrian temple resemble something from biblical heritage before that heritage even existed? But let's go back to the footprints. They're not just big, they're anatomically accurate. Visible toes, arches, heels, right where a giant's foot would land if it were climbing the stairs. They aren't randomly scattered. They feel intentional, as if they were carved to preserve a memory, a story, maybe even a truth. Local legends say the temple belonged to Ishtar, the Mesopotamian goddess of love and war. She's often portrayed as part human, part divine, towering above mortals. But some believe the temple wasn't made for a goddess like Ishtar. It was made by beings like her. Across the ancient world, there are stories of giants, beings that stood tall beside mountains. These stories cross continents, from the Nephilim in Hebrew texts to the Anunnaki of Mesopotamian myth. Some believe those beings once walked the earth, long before humans. Could the footprints in Anara be a physical echo of those beings? Pause for a second. Imagine standing at the temple's entrance. The stones are cracked, the columns worn by centuries of wind and sun, the sun setting, casting warm shadows across the ground. You look down and you see it. A massive footprint carved deep into the stone. No one could fake that without tremendous effort. You step forward and find another. Same shape, same stride. It doesn't feel like a joke. It doesn't feel symbolic. It feels like something or someone really walked here. Something way bigger than anyone we've ever known. Now imagine what that means. It suggests that somewhere lost in the fog of deep history, there were beings whose size we now only whisper about in bedtime stories. And maybe, just maybe, these are the last footprints they left behind. Not just in stone, but in time.